Hey, what's up, guys? Shane here again with Rice Creek Bushcraft. Glad you guys could come along and join me today. Today we're going to be talking about the Survive Knives GSO 4.1. This one is in CPM 3V. I know I've done some videos in the past with Bark River knives and CPM 3V, and it was a great steel, but man, it was so tough to get sharp that I ended up getting rid of the knife, and that's kind of my pastime is sharpening knives. So I'm fairly good at it, and I just didn't. I felt like I spent so much time to get it sharp that it just wasn't fun. So I got rid of the knife. I want to start off by saying also that this isn't really a full-on review. We're just going to go over this knife together and check it out, see how it performs. Basically, we're just going to make a fire. That's going to be it. Nothing too earth-shattering here. We'll get some wood whittled down and make some feather sticks and get a fire going with a ferro rod. See how it does in that essence. I mean, you really don't know how good a knife's going to be, or I guess what I'm trying to say is if it's going to serve the purposes for you as your main bushcraft blade without really using. And I have several knives that I've used bunches and bunches and bunches, and I'm really comfortable with, and I know their limitations and what I like about them, what I don't like, where they perform well, and where they kind of fall a little short. So this isn't a full-on review. It's just looking at the knife, and normally I like to use the knife. I really haven't used this one at all, but I think sometimes this shows a good indicator of how a knife might be for somebody that purchases it and wants to see how it's going to handle and act for them, kind of like right out of the box. I got this second hand, and when I received it from the guy, it was not terribly dull, but it wouldn't shave. And you know me, that's a no-no. It's got to be able to shave. So that's where I want to start off by saying first is I threw it on my Japanese water stones, and I'm talking a few light passes from where I considered the knife pretty dull. It wasn't in the condition that I would bring it to the woods and feel comfortable with doing things that I do out here. I just didn't like it. So I took a few passes with it, and all I can say is wow and wow. Their heat treat at Survive Knives must be spot on, or I just got damn lucky, because this thing got razor shaving sharp. I was cutting circles with paper with it, and I'm just talking 30 seconds worth of sharpening, you know, maybe a minute tops. I didn't spend a lot of time. I kept the same, you know, this secondary bevel on here, the V ground, you know, that I like convex edges, but I just left this alone because I wanted to see how it performed, and then we could kind of look at it together and see how it did. So we'll go over the specs. I'll tell you what I think about the knife initially. That's one of the reasons I'm doing this video, is because it did feel so good. And it's one of those knives that everybody knows about Survive Knives, and they know they're great knives, and I guess I've had chances to buy them, and then I'd see something else, you know, maybe a Falkneven or LT Wright or Bark River that I wanted more, that I felt was more bushcrafty, if that's a thing. These just didn't look like it to me, so I just never picked one up. Well, I got a chance to make a trade with a guy, and thought, well, what the heck. I traded him for a folder I wasn't really using, and thought this would give me a good opportunity to test one of these out and see. So I liked it initially, right off the bat. I love the way it felt. This is the older model. This has got the Jade G10 scales, but the new ones have, instead of just the flathead screws, they have Torx, I believe. And I don't know if I don't know, I didn't research it. I don't know if they epoxy these in, but I was going to take the scales off. And I put a pretty good amount of torque on one of these to look behind the scales, and they're on there. So I didn't really force it too much. I was like, it's not that important. But they're on there pretty good. I believe this is skeletonized in some fashion, and the new ones are not skeletonized. The new ones, I believe, have a wider, thicker profile here, like more of a palm swell. So I think that would make this knife perfect, but it does feel really good. I was really impressed when I got the knife. I put it in my hands. It's got a 4 1/4 inch blade, 4.7 handle length, and it's 8.95 overall, 0.16 thickness, so it's plenty thick enough for you know, basically a 9-inch knife. It's plenty thick enough. And I think this is a ferro rod notch, I believe is what that is, if you can see that. But the spine's, yeah, a little rounded. I mean, you know the knives I like, and they're usually pretty sharp. This is, but I think I don't know, let's see. It seems like it strikes, so not using the notch, yeah, kind of what I thought. It's just kind of too round. So if we just use the notch here, I'm sure that'll work. Oh yeah. So that does work as intended, works well. The sheath, real quick, we'll talk about the sheath. Kydex, obviously, and awesome retention. I mean, shaking hard here. Awesome retention. It really snaps in well. I mean, you got to give it a good push here with the thumb ramp to get it out. So you can see it snaps in solidly. Love the sheath. Another thing I love about the sheath, while we're talking about it, is you can switch this the way I switched it when I got it, to carry it scout style. If you don't know what that is, that's just you feed your belt this way and it rides horizontally. Okay, or you can take this Kydex piece off, turn it, put a screw here and one here where it's at, and then you can carry it, you know, vertical, like a lot of guys like to. I carry either way, it just depends. If I'm carrying vertical, I prefer a dangler. That's just me. If I have a sheath like this with just a solid belt loop, I guess you'd say, I like to carry it this way. Carry it scout. So the sheath's great. I love the sheath. It's got a few different attachment points. It's got a drain hole in the bottom, so water's not going to stay in there. If you don't know, CPM 3V is a high alloy tool steel, so it will rust. It can rust. It's pretty good, and they put a really good stone wash on here, so it's not like it's going to be a 1095 knife or something, or 01 tool steel where it gets damp and then it's rusted the next day. It's not going to be like that, but it's going to take on some oxidation and stuff, so you just kind of got to watch it and care for it. But yeah, overall feel, it's awesome. I love it. It's got this, I guess I call it a hidden lanyard hole. You could feed some paracord in here, and then it would come out the back side here, so you could put on a, you know, lanyard if you wanted one, whatever. So let's get some wood prepared, and then we'll use our ferro rod. I've got some basically dry grass here we can use to get a fire going. I need to get some wood whittled down a little smaller, and I think maybe we should try a feather stick or two. Actually, we can just try it with this piece. See how it does. Because I'm for a woods knife, I'm really a convex guy. I mean, pretty much everything I own gets turned to convex. But I did play with this when I first got it at home. This is white ash. I tried it on a piece of pine, and it did really good. So I was pretty impressed. I mean, you can see it's peeling off some pretty fine stuff. We'll just make some here and put them in our bundle. Wood is really hard. It's pretty hard to get a good feather out of it. But it does work. Let's find something else. I got some other wood here. I don't know. This is just some other wood that's laying around. I think if you get the right bite here, it's gonna work good. It'll be fine. It'll get the job done. So we can put this stuff in our bundle just to give us a little more surface area to catch. Well, we got our fire going. The knife functioned as it should have. Worked good with the ferro rod notch, starting a fire. I want to use the knife a little more so you guys can see it. Here's just a small piece of ash that I cut a while ago. You know, people say you shouldn't baton, or it's not a good idea, or whatever. Use an axe. Alright, here's my argument for using an axe. Not that I don't have some great axes. I have a Holtz Brux, and I have some Husqvarna axes, yada yada yada. Had Wetterlings. But the thing that's tough to do for like fire prep, if that's what you're doing, is making stuff this size, okay, with an axe. I'm not saying you can't do it. It's just a little bit tougher. And probably if you use an axe predominantly for your bushcraft tool, you probably get really good at it. You know, I know you can split wood like this. You can put your axe here and bang on it. And yeah, I've done all that. It's fine. But just for the precision aspect of it, number one, you can't take an axe with a small piece of wood like this and chop it safely. Okay, you can't do it. So yeah, you can stick it here, but you still got usually a bit more obtuse edge, and it's harder to get really small stuff with an axe. It's harder. So I know we're gonna hear the arguments. Oh no, I can do this thing. I'm not saying you can't do it. You can do it, but this is just much easier, and it's not hurting the knife to do what I'm doing right now. Okay, it's not gonna hurt this knife one single bit. Sure, you get a big giant piece of wood and you barely have any tip sticking out, and you start beating the living piss out of it. Yeah, you could break your knife. But guys, you can baton with your knives. If you buy a high quality knife, you can baton with it. It's fine. Okay, it's just called common sense, which seems to be lacking a lot nowadays. So you get all these arguments about why you shouldn't do it. It's a bad idea. It's not a big deal. I mean, you can see I got almost baton through this piece of wood right here with my hand. I mean, almost. You know, you could just kind of hit it and go through. That's how easy it is. It's just about that easy. I'm not hitting this hard. I'm not abusing the knife. I would not consider this knife abuse, okay? Would I take this piece of wood and lay this on here, cross grain, and just start beating tar? No, I wouldn't do that. That's why you guys don't see me do tip tests, all right? I'm not gonna break my knife on purpose to make a video because I buy all this stuff. and I try to take care of it. So yeah, just wailing away, yeah, you could break your knife, you could damage it. So doing this, don't go buy a bushcraft knife and say, well, so and so said that you know, I shouldn't baton and it's gonna hurt your knife. It's not gonna, it's a piece of steel going through a piece of wood. As long as you use common sense and don't get a piece of wood that's far too large for the knife you're using. You know, you got a bigger piece of wood, you need a bigger knife, you need a thicker knife, you need a longer knife. You still can baton through bigger stuff. But going back to using an axe for this, if you needed to, see, I went yakking, I let my fire go out. That's all right, I don't really want to fire anyways, it's hot out here. But you can just make really nice small little stuff, and if you got a spot that you come out to like I do all the time, sometimes I'll just get some stuff prepared for the next time I come out so I can just get a fire going. I don't have to dink around with doing this. But you can see, we're not hurting this knife, not one single tiny bit. This is perfectly fine to do this with your knife. So if anybody tells you otherwise, they're just doing something stupid with it. This isn't hurting the knife, it's not hurting the edge. You're gonna have more chance of hurting the edge taking this knife and just chopping with it and rolling it, or possibly chipping it. Not that that probably should happen with a good knife, but you have more of a chance of hurting it doing that than you do batoning common sense sized material. So that part of my rant's over. I just don't want you guys to think you can't do this. I've done it a million times. You know, if we want to step up to something like this piece would be fine, okay? I got plenty of blade. Yeah, this has got a knot in it. Maybe not the best piece to baton with your knife, but you could, without fear of breaking your knife. Okay, not a big deal. And that was the knotty piece. Now, if this was twice that size, yeah, I probably wouldn't baton through it with this knife. I just wouldn't do it. But just smaller stuff like this, you got awesome material here, rendered down into sizes you could make a sweet little fire with. It wouldn't take much of a flame to get it going. And if you leave stuff like this out, cover it up, whatever, it's going to dry out really good. There's your next fire lay, basically. So don't freak out about batoning. But back to the knife, just a little bit we've done. I like it. I really like it. And all the years of having knives and having most of the major brands of fixed blades, I just never picked one of these up. And to be honest, I'm really liking the feel of it. And I think I would like, maybe, possibly, they have this, the 4.1, then they have a 4.7, and then they have a, I think it's a 5.1. They got all of them. I think they got 6, 7s, 8s, I think, or 6 and 8s, and GSO 10. But the 4.7 might be a little bit better size. You got a little bit more length, but most of the time, you know, this is 4 1/4, like I said, 4-inch blade, 4 1/2. That's great, bushcraft stuff. So, anyways, hope you guys liked the video. If you're thinking about buying one, at least you got to see one do some things that you would probably use it for. Hopefully to help you make a decision. I will do a longer term review on this because I'm going to keep this one. I really like it. I know when I get a knife and use it and handle it and sharpen it is a big thing for me. If I'm going to keep it, I'm going to most likely keep this knife. The only way I might get rid of it is if I went and tried the maybe trade for a 4.7, because I think that little bit more length might be nice. But I don't know, I like this. I think the newer model with the thicker handle scales, the more swell, I would probably like that a little more. I'm getting used to like the broom handle design on the LT Wrights, like on my Genesis. I like the feel of that. I just like a little bit fatter handle because it keeps, if you've got a narrow profile right here, okay, and you hold that knife, it does start to fatigue your hand. I'm not saying this one did. I didn't use it enough, obviously, and I haven't used enough to say so, but it does start to wear right here. Usually this part right here But if it's a little bit thicker and you got more surface area across here, that to me is better for bushcraft and working wood. But just for like maybe EDC knife, this might be a little bit on the big side for an EDC knife, but talking about scale and handle thickness, this would probably be fine. So anyways, thanks for watching. Leave some comments, tell me what you thought of the video, how I can improve. I'm not much on editing, so mine are pretty raw, but they get the point across, I think. Alright, this is Shane signing out, Rice Creek Bushcraft. Thanks for joining me, and we'll see you on the next video.